But the NDP would tell those workers, don't go back to school, don't get retrained, don't go get a job in another jurisdiction, because we're going to just fix this with the cost of electricity. What a bunch of nonsense. What a bunch of nonsense. And we had to listen to it. And it wasn't just the recession or the subprime mortgage crisis. There's a thing called the debt crisis going on, right? Abitibi-Bowater, in my community, they joined, they used to be just Bowater, the pulp and paper mill. They joined with Abitibi. At the time, probably sound like a good idea. We're going to join, we're into the newsprint market, we're in the pulp market, we're going to join, we want to take some commodity out of the market and try and get the price up. Sounded like a good idea at the time. Well, a year later, the credit crisis hits. What did Abitibi have on their books? $6.2 billion of debt after they joined forces. And now we got a credit crisis in the US. What happens? You know, it is amazing. I always appreciate very much, I've said it before, sometimes I'm envious of the positions of the Conservatives or the positions of the NDP. Sometimes I must say I'm envious of the simplicity of your arguments. You just throw out energy pricing, you trot it out as it was described here a little while ago, this one-trick pony argument, and you repeat it, and you repeat it, and you repeat it, and you beat it into people's brains until they don't think there's anything else going on. But you know what? This is fundamental change, and it doesn't work that way. This industry requires a different approach today. And if you're interested, truly interested in helping those people who've lost their jobs in this industry, you might want to think a bit broader, and you might want to try and change the message. Because lowering the cost of electricity by 1 cent a kilowatt hour, or whatever it is your goal would be, and I never did hear what it was, is not going to bring one job back in the sawmilling industry, because there is no market for what they produce. That market has been severely diminished. There are still sawmills operating. There's some market. If you want to do something, why don't you go and ask the federal guys to try and do some work on the softwood lumber agreement? Get us a bigger market share. Try and find a way to address that tribunal that every time we try and export into that market, we get shut down. It's unbelievable, the simplicity of the argument. I must say I'm envious. Speaker, and the reality of it is we've helped tremendously when it comes to this industry. There are more mills that may have been gone, that may have disappeared, if not for the different types of support that we've brought forward, I would say over the last 5 years, even more significantly, the last 2 or 3 years. In the last 2 years for Abby Bow, operating in the city of Thunder Bay, employing 450 people, and another 300 or 400 in the woodlands, we've announced 2 programs that combined are saving them $25 million a year. And we think as a result of that, we're going to see further investments come from that particular facility. But again, when it comes to Abby Bow, I should make the point, because again, it's primarily the NDP who want to make it sound like we shut down an industry. There was 3 paper machines operating at the Abby Bow mill in 2003. Today there is 1. One of those machines closed in 2003. And here's a point that I want to stress, and I hope that people are following this debate on TV will really remember this point. In 2003, they closed that machine. I think there was about 150 men and women associated with the work on that machine. But here's the difference. When they closed that machine in 2003, before we formed government, they didn't just close the machine. They transferred the capacity of that machine, that is, what it produced, what it made, what it sold. They transferred the capacity of that machine to another jurisdiction. Okay? So they made a decision before we were in government. You 150 people, you're out of work. Abby Bow Mill in Thunder Bay has nothing to do with energy prices. This is 2003, nothing to do with it. And we're shifting the capacity of that machine to a different jurisdiction. So I would love to hear an NDPer stand up and tell me why that happened, because you know what the point is? All of those closures that have occurred now that the NDP want to tell you are because of energy pricing, show me if that's the case. Show me where the capacity of those closures has been transferred to another jurisdiction. If it's only about energy prices, show me where the capacity of those sawmills and those pulp and paper mills got transferred to a lower cost energy jurisdiction. Prove your argument instead of just standing up and being demagogues on a regular basis. Because you know what? It didn't happen. Quebec, that is a lower cost energy producing jurisdiction than Ontario, and it always has been. BC is a lower cost energy jurisdiction than Ontario, and it always has been. So if the case is simply about energy, how come they didn't just close? Abibo operates mills in Quebec. Why didn't they just close the mill in Thunder Bay and transfer the capacity into Quebec? Because there's no market, right? Because the commodity price was too low. Because the Canadian dollar used to be 73 cents and it topped out at $1.10. Because there's a shrinking market for newsprint. Because there's global competition. Why didn't they just transfer the capacity, Madam Speaker? I wonder if there's a little bit more at play here when it comes to forestry and the fundamental change that's occurred in this industry. But again, as I say, I continue to be envious of the simplicity of the arguments that the NDP get to put out there, and unfortunately, a little lately, my Conservative friends. So, what are we going to do about it, right? I can tell you from where I come from, people have been clamoring for change in terms of the management of the forest industry. We've been hearing this for 3 or 4 years because there are quieter voices out there who understand the fundamental change that has occurred in this industry, and they know that we need a different approach to try and create jobs. About 1 or 2 months ago, I was in Atikokan. My riding is Thunder Bay-Atikokan. 1 or 2 months ago, I had the opportunity to be up there for a wonderful announcement. We had a competitive wood supply allocation announcement. And we gave a company called Atikokan Renewable Fuels, through a competitive process, we didn't just give it to them, they had a bid, significant Aboriginal involvement in their bid. We allocated to them, I'm forgetting the number, about 180,000 cubic meters. They already had 100,000, and they're going to go into a different type of market, which is where we need to be if we want to create jobs. They're going to take an old sawmill, again another example of an old sawmill that was closed in Atikokan when I was first elected, called ProBoard. It was closed already. Another example. Okay, we didn't create this problem. This company has bought that facility. They're going to bring probably in the order of about 95 people back to work, 40 or 60 of them in the facility, and the balance in the woodlands producing wood pellets. Because we gave them wood, a new approach in this situation to getting wood to new players who have new products, who want to create employment with significant First Nation involvement, which was one of the reasons they won the bid. This company is now going to have an opportunity to bid on being the supplier of a fuel source, a biomass fuel source, to the Atikokan generating station. Now, all three parties and all three political leaders at the time, Howard Hampton, when he was the leader of the NDP, Ernie Eves, when he was the leader of the Conservatives, and us, when we were running in 2003, all committed to closing coal. But nobody committed to converting them. Well, we've done that. Atikokan generating station is going to be converted to biomass. This particular company, who just got this wood through a new process, we're talking about change, to address the fundamental change that's occurred in this industry. This new company now has wood. They're going to produce a biomass product that could potentially, through a competitive process, they might become the supplier of their product to that facility. How many more jobs will that create, is the point that I'm getting to. That's Atikokan Renewable Fuels. Speaker, Abitibi, Bowater, and Thunder Bay, I've talked on the sawmilling side. On the pulp and paper side, if you have thermal mechanical pulping, it is an energy-intensive process. Not all pulp and paper mills have the same process. If you have what is called TMP, it can be a significant contributor to their operating costs. We addressed it. But anybody who still stands in this place and looks into the cameras on a regular basis and tells all of those thousands of laid off forestry workers that, you know what, your job is gone because this Liberal government just dropped the ball when it came to the policy, it's staggering to me. I got to tell you, it's absolutely staggering. The nerve. As I said, my old friend Johnny Holbeck, the Kashabawi kid, he used to say, Billy, they got more nerve than a bad tooth. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how people do it. They say it on a regular basis. They repeat it. I guess it's the old advertising axiom, right? Just keep saying it 10 times before it penetrates into the consciousness of your market. I suppose that's what's going on here. It's not something I could do. It's not something I could do. Speaker, this bill, Bill 151, is about change. People in Northern Ontario have been asking for this for a very long time, and we're delivering it.
Questions, Ed?